Halo Episode 4, completely scuffed. This silver timeline is utterly ridiculous. It's Halo in name only. Look, I do think while this episode was not as bad as last week's, it still wasn't good. I mean, last week's was mind-blowingly bad. But we are now 4 episodes into a Halo live-action show, and there's only been one battle with Master Chief and Spartans taking on the Covenant. In fact, I actually don't think there was any Covenant in this episode whatsoever. Apart from one random dead elite in a UNSC research lab, but we'll get to that. So this episode starts with, we have a bit of a flashback to the Spartan 2 program being trained. There is a Menendez reference, so that's pretty cool, I guess. But my problem with all this is this, and we've said many times on our breakdown streams of this show, is that in proper Halo canon, lying to Spartans about how they became Spartans is a terrible idea. And it works really well in the proper Halo canon. Whereas in this, the whole concept of lying to Spartans is stupid because we got the emotional suppressors and then Chief taking out that little chip thing in the, just above his ass cheeks. He's starting to remember things and he's figuring out, wait a minute, all these people lied to me. So it's kind of like Soren was right in this whole timeline. And I just think it completely defeats the point of Spartan 2s. But then again, I also think that Blessed Ones and the Covenant having a Blessed One such an early stage also makes the Human Covenant war pointless. Why not put all your effort into finding the Halo rings, especially when you have a Blessed One called Marquis? Just seems like a waste of resources to fight this war now. Okay, so anyway. So yeah, we have that little flashback at the start, and it's very bizarre. It's like it's a silver timeline. It kind of like goes against itself. It contradicts itself, and this episode was no different. Now, we do get a little bit more of Cortana in this episode. Now, I still think Cortana's relationship with Master Chief in the silver timeline, especially at this stage, is absolutely terrible. They seem to just completely despise each other, and especially after her being introduced in the way that she was in the last episode, she's there to basically kill John at the flick of a switch, and Chief, he doesn't really appreciate her being there until he needs someone to help him Google. As always, Jen Taylor's voice as Cortana, love it, but that's pretty much all I can say about what's going on there. So yes, we do have more butt cheeks in this episode. The Halo show has become known as Master Cheeks. There's a lot of butt cheeks going on in this show. We get Vinsha butt cheeks. Now, I do like the character of Vinsha. I've said many times, and I'll say it again. I think with Vinsha, you could come up with a cool Oni storyline dealing with the insurrectionists on Madrigal. However, Paramount Plus seems to have no idea what Oni is. So that's another thing, but we'll get back into that Vinsha stuff as well. The other butt cheeks we see in this one is, I can't even remember Silver Team's name. Not Fred, not Kelly, and not Linda. So the chick in the last episode that saw Master Chief cut out his chip thingy, tablet, whatever it was, she decides to do the same. Now, this was strange to me because in the last episode, Master Chief needed Cortana to tell him, where to make the cut and all that. So I don't know how she managed to do this by herself. So she's not turning John in, she's copying what John did in order of taking the chip out. And when she takes the chip out, she becomes a bit more human. And this is why she puts the pink streaks in her hair. In fact, all her interactions with Miranda in this episode are a huge red flag. I mean, I feel like Miranda should be looking at this being like, okay, something's definitely happened to you and this should be reported. She does, however, say towards the end of the episode that she's not going to report her. They want to keep it a bit of a secret and all this type of stuff. And that goes in line with the fact that Miranda uses the not Fred, not Kelly, not Linda Silver team to help translate Sangheili language, which... See, this show has degraded Miranda to the point where she's no longer the badass that she was in Halo 2 and Halo 3. And they've turned her into... She's in charge of translating alien languages. And she's shit at her job. Over all the time they've been fighting the Covenant, she hasn't once fought to ask the Spartans, who are had more contact with the Covenant than anyone else. Terrible at her job. Absolutely terrible at her job. So yeah, 2 butt cheeks. Well, 4 butt cheeks technically from 2 different people in this episode. And we see that Miranda, again, part of her character being degraded is that she is intimidated by Spartans. Whereas, in Halo 2 and Halo 3, she, hangs out with Master Chief, yo, what up, man? Good day. Good, how you doing, Master Chief? How you doing? And this one, she sees not Fred, not Kelly, not Linda, and she's like, oh, Spartans, and it's no good. It's no good. So before we jump on what's going on with Master Chief, I want to go back to Vischer and Kwan. So Kwan's on her little side quest back in Madrigal, trying to get the rebellion up and running, and it goes to shit. It's all over the place, man. She ends up at like her dad's funeral. I'm like, why are they just doing the funeral now? And she kind of flips the shit because she accuses one of her dad's generals of being a traitor. And when you look at who this person was, you're like, how is this old lady a general in an insurrection group against the UNSC? Like, how? Like, I can buy Kwan's dad being a leader. That makes sense. But this old as fuck lady, whatever. So it all goes to shit. They get attacked by Vinci's men, and Soren has to do his thing and save the day. Kwan ends up talking with her aunt, who was later killed in the episode by a Vinci assassin. And Kwan finds out from her aunt that Kwan's dad went to do some, like, you know, went on like a trip type thing to hang out with like the desert people, but the whole planet's a desert, so whatever. And he came back from this trip and he believes it was his responsibility to put Madrigal on its right path. And I think what this is leading to is going to be the revelation that Kwan is going to be a blessed one. Another blessed one, because why the fuck not? That whole side story that's going on, whatever. But Master Chief. John's past plays a really big part of this episode. And this ties back in with the whole why I think the whole Silver timeline is scuffed for many a reason, but specifically with Spartan 2 programming. Them being lied to and manipulated. As Master Chief starts to get his memories back, you see him start to look at Halsey being like, I'm gonna fucking kill this bitch, man. He remembers that he was told that his parents died before Halsey came in. And he's starting to remember that's not entirely true. And granted, it does show the coin flip. And I do like that. I really like the coin flip part in the Fall of Reach book, how John keeps guessing it right every single time because he's lucky. However, the setting and the coin are wrong, but whatever, man. It's Silver Timeline! So Master Chief's having all these memories, and he's using Cortana to help piece together what his house would look like. And he figures out that, hold on, I think I know where the second artifact is. And that's where this episode ends, with him tracking down where the second artifact was. No Covenant, no Marquis. I feel like I called it. This episode would be a lot more like episode 2 in terms of it just being boring as fuck. Episode 3 was god-awful. Like, god-awful. Whereas this one, we're just back to being boring. Master Chief didn't do it. Master Chief dug a hole, got angry at Halsey. That's about it. Still no battle with Spartans and Covenant apart from that opening scene in the first episode. This show's boring as fuck. But as always, this is just my raw reactions after watching the episode. We will be doing the breakdown stream as per normal, maybe at a different time because of Easter and all that type of stuff. But make sure you are subscribed, bell notification on, so you do get alerted when we're doing that. Let me know what you think of this episode in the comment section down below. Leave a thumbs up, all that good stuff, and I will talk to you all later. Ta-ta. This show's fucking terrible.